Hey everyone, this is Pete, and welcome back to the 400 Mini Show, an exploration of the built-in games on the 400 Mini retro gaming console and onwards into the broader Atari 8-bit library. Today's game is Berzerk, a game that originated as an arcade game by Stern in 1980. While not strictly speaking an Atari game, Atari only bought the rights to Stern's back catalogue quite recently at the time of recording, Berzerk had several well-respected home ports to Atari systems, with the 2600 version being probably the most well-known. The Atari 8-bit version we're looking at today wasn't officially released back in the day, but is mostly identical to the Atari 5200 version which was released, and as usual, the prototype of the Atari 8-bit version leaked out into the wild via piracy groups. It's a very good port, incorporating even most of the speech synthesis from the original arcade machine. Berzerk was the brainchild of Alan McNeil, who worked in the Universal Research Laboratory subsidiary of Stern Electronics. Legend has it that one night he had a dream about a black and white video game in which he had to fight robots, and when he awoke he designed Berzerk. The game was named after Fred Saberhagen's series of Berzerker science fiction novels and short stories, in which self-replicating robots seek to destroy all life. The game's legendary Evil Otto, an enemy designed to keep you moving forwards, was named after Dave Otto, a sadistic security chief from McNeil's former employer, who used to lock employees out of the building at lunchtimes, smile while he yelled at people, and pipe Muzak into every room, apparently. Berzerk is also legendary for being the first video game associated with people dying. The first was 19-year-old Jeff Daly, who suffered a massive heart attack after playing the game in 1981, and the second was about a year later when 18-year-old Peter Bukowski also suffered heart failure after playing the machine. In both cases the presence of Berzerk was coincidental, probably, though in the latter case the coroner didn't completely rule out prolonged stress from playing the game as a contributing factor. And of course the fact of the matter didn't stop right-wing nutcases from trying to use the incidents to ban video game sales to minors at the time. McNeil went on to develop a sequel to Berzerk known as Frenzy, which only saw a home port to the ColecoVision console, and subsequently developed the Macromind Director and Media Maker programs, later known as Macromedia. McNeil sadly died in December of 2017, but it's clear from the obituary written by his mother that he was widely beloved, and the legacy of his creation lives on to this day, with Berzerk being a popular and well-liked title from the golden age of arcade games. So, let's raise a glass to Alan McNeil's contribution to video game history, and let's go play Berzerk. Okay, here we are with Berzerk, copyright 1983 Atari, so a few years after the original arcade game release. 2600 version came out the year before this, I think, and then this was released on the Atari 5200, because Atari wanted some good arcade ports on there. And the Atari 8-bit version, for some reason, never materialised officially. Although, as I said in the intro, like most stuff of this ilk, it did make its way out into the wild via piracy groups, and we certainly had a copy that was acquired from the local computer club, as most things were. Okay, let's begin. So in Berzerk, you play the little dude, who I believe is just known as the player. And your job is to shoot many robots. Many robots. And the walls in the maze are electrified, so you mustn't touch them. And if you take too long on a stage, Evil Otto shows up and starts chasing you, encouraging you to hurry up. Now, you can actually leave a room before you've destroyed all the robots in it, but if you do that, the game then calls you a chicken. The game then calls you a chicken for the rest of your play session, because you chickened out of killing all the robots and dealing with Evil Otto. But as you probably saw from just that first screen, you don't have much time to play with before Otto shows up. That one's just gonna sit there. He's just gonna sit there and wait until... Nope. Whoop. Oh no! Oh no. See, this game looks like it's slow and sedate, but it's actually very tricky. Because part of that slow and sedate nature is the fact that you can't move very quickly either. Which means that getting out of the way of trouble can sometimes be quite challenging.
Intruder alert, intruder alert. The humanoid must not escape.
And you might be able to notice that, much like in the original arcade machine, which varied the pitch of the various bits of speech, so too does this version. And that was added to just add a bit of variety, really. Okay, 2180. Not a bad start, but not a brilliant start either. Let's have another go. This is the easiest difficulty level, by the way. But yeah, Berzerk is a very simple game. But it's one of those games where you can sort of trace it forwards to later games. Like the first-person shooter genre owes a lot to Berzerk, because Berzerk... Whoops! Berzerk begat stuff like the original Wolfenstein. So before Wolfenstein went 3D, there was the Castle Wolfenstein games. Whoops! And they kind of built on what was going on in this game. So this was a very simple action game. The original Wolfenstein games added a little bit more depth to the experience, but they were still basically top-down maze games with action elements. And so yeah, more recent stuff certainly owes a debt to Berzerk. And elements like using cover, we see here.
Intruder alert, intruder alert. Chicken fight like a robot.
There we go. I didn't kill that last robot because Otto was chasing me, so now the game is going to mock me for the rest of my playthrough by calling me a chicken. Oh, you're being annoying, aren't you? There you go. You deserve that wall. This game's so hard. Like I said, the funny thing about it is it doesn't look hard at all. You're probably watching what I'm doing and thinking, God, what are you doing? Why are you even getting hit by any of those? Because look how slowly they move. Look how slowly they move. But yeah, tricky.
Intruder alert, intruder alert. The humanoid must not escape.
You can probably trace this forwards to horror games as well. I think I've made that argument in the past, where there's just little bits and pieces of this that it has in common with modern horror games. Mostly the fact that you're a very vulnerable protagonist against quite powerful enemies. You're not limited in resources in this, other than lives. But you are on a very tight time limit, as we've seen. And your aim is to survive against... No! Frankly, pretty overwhelming odds. That was lucky. That was lucky, was what that was. So you really get very little time at this point. And you got to get right out of there before Otto gets to you. So efficient killing and or leading them into their own destruction. And then run! Run like the wind. You see, you can actually shoot down the enemy bullets as well, so that's one thing you can do to defend yourself. Although because the bullets are so small, it's quite tricky to do deliberately. But it is something you can probably learn how to do. Ooh. First life lost. This has been quite a solid run so far. They are getting quite... No! They are getting pretty trigger happy now, as you can see. No! Rubbish. Absolute rubbish. Now, I believe there are some different game modes in this that you can access by pressing this button here. And I haven't seen an explanation of these anyway, but I assume they're different difficulty levels. Because if you look, the robots are shooting more and more bullets as that number goes up down in the bottom left corner. And the bullets are shooting faster then. So level 7, they're shooting high-speed bullets at you. Level 8, they're shooting 2 high-speed bullets. Level 9, 3 high-speed bullets at a time. And level 10, just constant shooting. Let's have a go at level 10, see how we get on. I suspect not very long. Ooh. Sniped. Oh god. Yeah, that's intense. That is intense. Hello, sir. Well, I cleared one room. The intruder's dead, Otto. Just give it up. I'm already dead. Yeah, well, that is certainly very difficult. Oh god, it goes even higher than 10. It goes up to 11. Okay, I think we'll stick with level 1 for now. I think that's about my speed. Because I think the difficulty escalates as you play anyway. Because if you look, in this first room, none of them are shooting. And the further you go in the game, the more they shoot. And the faster they move. This is one of those games that when I first played it, it kind of fired my imagination a bit, because although you're not actually going anywhere as you move around the maze, in my mind it was possible to escape. In my mind, if you could just In my mind, if you could just find the right route through the rooms, you could escape. Now, I think I read somewhere that there actually is a finite number of rooms in this. But it's also something like 64,000 rooms, so you're not going to see all of them. Even if you are the most skilled Berzerk player in existence. I suspect you are not going to see all 64,000 rooms. And it may even just be that there's 64,000 different room layouts rather than you beat 64,000 rooms and you beat the game. Because this was very much the era where arcade games just went on. You played them for the love of playing them rather than to beat them, because it wasn't possible to beat them. So you treated them like a challenge, almost like a sport. You played to see how long you could survive on that single coin. There's no continuing in Berzerk, because there's no point. Because the entire point of games like this from this period of arcade game history was to just play as long as you could, survive as long as you could, score as many points as you could, and enjoy the bragging rights that came along with those. Oh, that was my own fault. And enjoy the bragging rights that came along with those high scores. Berzerk is actually quite a low scoring game generally, as you can probably see. You get 50 points per robot. Oh! And then when you clear out all the robots, you get a bonus depending on... I'm not entirely sure what it's based on. It might be how quickly you clear out the robots. But, yeah, you do get a decent chunk of points when you exit the room. Oh, no. But just generally speaking, it's quite a low scoring game in general. I just got here, Otto. Leave me alone. Oh, okay. I think the bonus might be based on how many robots there were in the room. So you get 50 points per robot as you shoot them, and then you get an additional 10 points per robot as a bonus when you've cleared the room. That appears to be how it works anyway. Already dead. I'm already dead, I say. I also don't think you get points if the robots kill themselves on the walls. Rubbish! Doing absolute crap now. Right, this is the one. This is the go. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Oh no! No. Oh, you do get points when they... die on the walls from the look of things. My mistake.
The humanoid must not escape.
Right, come on now.
Intruder alert, intruder alert.
See you later. I am out of here.
Must not escape.
So we talked about how this game probably had at least a slight influence on the first-person shooter genre. A little bit closer to its home time. It also influenced stuff like Robotron, which is a game I always put Berzerk. No! I always put Berzerk and Robotron kind of in the same. I always think of them together in my head because one of those discs we had for the Atari 8-bit back in the day containing numerous games acquired from the computer club. One of those discs had Berzerk and Robotron on it, and so I always associate these two with one another. And indeed, Robotron was actually inspired to a certain degree by Berzerk. Robotron, of course, taking the twin stick format for shooting. Whereas in this, you fire by holding the fire button and pushing a direction. So if you just press the fire button by itself, nothing happens. We push fire on right, you fire right, and so on. So it's a system that's a little bit cumbersome. But again, I think part of that is deliberate. And that sort of ties in again with what we said about horror games. There's the argument often made that a lot of horror games have deliberately clunky controls precisely because it adds to the panic factor. Now, I've never been entirely sure how true that is, or whether that was just a convenient excuse people made up to excuse shitty control schemes. I suspect there's at least an element of that. But it also makes sense. It also makes sense. If you have a game that is about running away from stuff, it makes sense to make running away slightly more difficult than it perhaps would be under normal circumstances. Because that helps to simulate the sense of panic, and how when you're panicking you tend to become more clumsy. Under certain circumstances, of course. In other circumstances, panic can lead you to sort of almost superhuman feats. Or, at the very least... No! At the very least, feats that you would place outside your normal capabilities. So there's kind of an argument to be made either way on that. Come here. And you. There we go. Mad skills. The score that someone died at, if you were wondering, was 16,600 points. Now, as I say, it was sort of suggested at the time that perhaps the stress of playing the game played a contributing factor in those two people's deaths while they were playing this game, but it's unlikely that the game itself caused their deaths. In one case, the guy had scar tissue on his heart, which meant that anything vaguely strenuous could have potentially caused issues. The first guy, there seems to be a little bit less information recorded about. But as you can expect, certain parts of the media and politics decided to run with the video game kills children angle. But, you know, that sort of urban legend probably helped Berzerk. It probably helped Stern, as morbid as that sounds. Because then you get the whole sort of cultural aspect of, oh, do you dare play the game that two people died playing? Oh dear, this isn't going to work, is it? And we're going to have to make a run for it. Chicken or not?
Chicken fight like a robot.
Chicken fight like a robot. The speech in this is very impressive considering the time it came out. Like at the time the original arcade game for this came out, speech synthesis was very expensive. And the fact you had not sure what got me there. Probably just the last remnant of a dying robot. But yeah, speech synthesis at the time was very expensive, and so to have an arcade game that was capable of saying, I think it was 30 different things altogether, because it combined things like the humanoid, the intruder, I think the arcade game would also call you it at times, and of course chicken, and then it combined those descriptors for the player with the various other phrases as well. So it could have like got the humanoid, got the intruder, got the chicken, got it, and that sort of thing. So in that way, between all of the individual little fragments that it was capable of saying, it could say about 30 different things. In the arcade game, rather notoriously, also had a habit of saying coin detected in pocket every so often as part of its attract mode, which I think is brilliant. Is brilliant because at the time it came out, people would still be sort of quite new to the idea of video games. And a talking one would already be unusual. But a talking one that appeared to recognise the fact that you had some loose change in your pocket, I can see that being quite frightening. But yeah, this is a good game. It's simple. There's nothing to it besides what you see here. But that's nice. That's what you want sometimes. Sometimes you want to play just for the sake of playing. You don't need a story. All you need is a set of rules and a means of measuring your skill or performance or whatever you want to call it. And that's enough to make a fun game. That's enough to make a fun and enjoyable and addictive video game. And I think it's very easy to forget that today. It's very easy to forget that today, because the vast majority of games that we have today, they want you to feel like you've had some sort of meaningful experience. Now, sometimes meaningful experience is sort of considered in an artistic way. So the people who made the game want you to have some sort of takeaway from the narrative of a game. And at other times, the meaningful experience is structural or mechanical in nature. So anything multiplayer or like a live service game falls into that category to a certain extent. Because those games are designed to keep people engaged by drip feeding them rewards and unlocks and all that sort of thing. Because that's seen as good for the player and also good for the people who make the game as well. Because if you've got continued player engagement, that means you've got a game that is going to continue to sell. It's going to continue to get people to potentially buy DLC or microtransactions and that sort of thing. So there's good and bad aspects to that side of design. But every time I play a game that doesn't want to take over my life, that doesn't want to be the only game I play for the rest of eternity, I find myself thinking, yeah, this is kind of nice. This game is respecting the fact that I might enjoy this game, but I don't necessarily want it to be the only thing that I do. I don't necessarily want it to be the only game that I play. And there are so many games today, not just in the live service space, but all over, that want to be, they want to take over your life. And sometimes that can be fun. If you've got a long RPG or something lengthy that has a good story, that can be cool in the same way as a good TV show can keep you engaged over the long term. But it can also be exhausting. It can also be exhausting when there's lots of things out at any one time, all of which you want to play, but you know all of them are going to demand 50 to 100 hours of your life, or even more. You can get to a point where you think, well, is it worth starting this now while I'm in the middle of something else that is already huge? I struggle with this all the time with RPGs and things like that. I try and make an effort to only play one big thing at once, because I find if I have multiple large story-based things on the go at once, one, I find it difficult to keep track of all the stories. And two, I also get a bit of a mental block when deciding what to do of an evening. I start thinking, well, okay, I quite fancy playing this game, but I should play this. I should play my big game that's on the go at the minute. And when you're in a situation where something that is supposed to be fun, leisure time, is feeling like an obligation, you're feeling like, oh, I should do this, then that can be a bit of a problem, I think. That can be a bit of a problem. And like I say, I try not to think that too much, but sometimes it's unavoidable. And so I tend to find that the best way to avoid that is to try and have just one big thing on the go at once. Concentrate on that. maybe if you fancy a break, have some smaller scale, low commitment titles like arcade games. I wrote a piece about Project Gotham 3 on Mario Gamer recently that was talking about this sort of thing as well. Where Project Gotham 3 is a game that it has a lot of stuff to do, but it's also not trying to... It's not trying to be the only game you play. It's a game you can dip into for half an hour, do a couple of races and feel like you've achieved something. And which you could then set aside for 6 months and not feel guilty about not playing for 6 months. Because you can just load it up when you feel like playing Project Gotham. Whereas a lot of modern driving are there with their weekly bonuses and their challenges and oh, you must play multiplayer, oh, you should do this limited time event, oh, you should unlock this car that you can only unlock by doing this track at this time, and that sort of thing. I don't know if that sort of thing is worse now, or if I'm just sort of noticing it a bit more as I get older. But yeah, it's certainly something I'd be very conscious of quite recently. Okay, right, let's have one more go at this. And then we'll call it a day, because I rambled on for long enough. You can see how this game works. And we've had a nice little chat along the way too. This is the run. This is the one where we're going to see all 64,000 rooms. So that's one. One of 64,000. Nope. Oh dear me. Oh dearie dearie me. Leave me alone. Leave me alone. What? I killed him just as I left. So no chicken for me. I am not a chicken. There we go. The humanoid must not escape. Oh, no, no, no. It's the diagonal shots. Diagonal shots are nasty. The diagonal shots in this are better than in the 2600 version. Because in the 26... Oh, no. Because in the 2600 version, it sort of held like a fairly large pellet at quite a funny angle due to the sort of the resolution of the pixels on the display that Berzerk on 2600 is using. So, yeah, diagonal shots are a bit of a sort of acquired taste on the 2600 version, but they make a bit more sense in this one. Okay, anyway, that was Berzerk for Atari 8-bit. A very good game. Great inclusion on the Atari 400 Mini. And, yeah, a game I recommend you spend some time with, just enjoying, because it's a game that's there to be enjoyed. That's all it is. It shows you what it is straight away, and it builds on that by getting more difficult rather than more complicated. And sometimes that is all you want. Sometimes that is all you want. I've certainly had fun with that today. Anyway, let's leave that there for today. As always, thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you again next time.